Welcome back, everybody. So today we are going to be talking about markets, yields, treasuries, China, the US, macroeconomics, and everything else in between. Now, obviously, as you can probably tell, this video is not like usual videos. I don't really have the time to sit behind the computer and do all the editing and everything like that. So I'm going to try and just distill my thoughts in a video and address a lot of comments what I've been receiving on Instagram and on YouTube. Now, first of all, if you are new here, thank you very much for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any thoughts, any ideas, please leave them in the comments down below. And most importantly, please watch to the end of the video because it really helps with YouTube, reach, etc, etc, etc. Now, let's get into this whole discussion. Now, let's discuss something what I recently posted. I basically shared the analogy just in relation to a party, like a work party. Now, you've obviously had this work party, you've invited everybody there, and you are the designated driver. Now, at this party, the booze is flowing, everyone's having a great time, blah, 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 blah. Things are really popping off. And then the booze stops, and everybody is questioning your reliability in terms of being the driver and driving everybody home. Now, if you've not seen this post, what I've done, I'll put it on the screen now, but I'm not going to walk through the entire thing because it will take me 20 minutes and probably take me 3 or 4 hours in terms of editing all the issues what I have in terms of doing videos. So, you know, just go and check it out. Having said all of that, what do I think is currently happening? I think there's a lot of moving dynamics, and obviously this discussion, there's multiple layers and multiple conversations what are happening all at the same time, and I think it is very, very intentional. Now, one of the main comments what I've been receiving is just in relation to yields. Now, I was anticipating that yields would go down because everybody flows from the stock market into treasuries, into the bond markets, what ultimately means that the price of bonds go up and the yields go down. Now, the yields have been going up, and this is incredibly interesting because a lot of people are saying to me, well, you got it wrong, you got it wrong, you got it wrong. And the thing is, what you need to be aware of is when the long end of the rates start to go up, that typically means that there is stress in the system. It means that people do not trust the US dollar. Now, they do not trust the integrity of the US financial system. What leads to another, let's say, discussion. What is, why are the yields going up? And I've tried to explain my thoughts on Instagram. Now, I'm fully aware that if you are new here, we are so far along in this discussion, and me bringing you up to speed with everything is probably going to be a little bit difficult. So I'm going to try and explain things in very simple ways, what I think is currently going on. Now, I think Trump has seen his main trading partner go around the world and flirt with everybody in regards to creating a new system outside of the US. And this would be BRICS, etc, etc, etc. Now, as a result, that relationship I think is being tested, and also all the other nations involved is also being tested. Now, the reason why I think the yields are going up is because China is forced to liquidate. And what I mean by that is China has currency issues. There's a lot of moving parts inside China, and China does not want capital flight. They do not want their currency to be destabilized significantly with what is going on with Trump. Now, as a result, I think China is selling US debt. And as a result, as they are selling the debt, they are propping up their own internal market. They are trying to save their own financial system. And Trump, I think, is very aware of this. I think people in the administration are fully aware of this as well. And Trump is putting that pressure on because they want to liquidate China. They want to remove a lot of assets away from China and obviously distribute them back to themselves or back to their own allies. Now, when you take into consideration the relationship between Japan and the US, I think Japan could probably be one of the largest buyers. Obviously, it is the largest holder of US treasuries. Now, I think Japan will most likely try and buy up a lot of the supply. What leads to another dynamic, what is, okay, so China is selling treasury bonds to prop up their entire financial system. What happens when they're out of treasury bonds? Now, that is another great question. Now, when you look at what China has currently been doing over the past couple of weeks and months and years, they have been slowly reducing their treasuries because they know that treasuries are very liquid, and they have been buying gold. Now, when you are out of treasury bonds, what I think and what I am anticipating happening, bear in mind, news is changing all the time, and obviously it's very, very dependent. And I think this is very dependent on where yields are. Now, of course, there is a lot of moving parts to all of this, but I think when China is out of selling treasury bonds, they are going to start to sell gold or pretty much anything else to save their entire system, because they cannot afford to have their entire system basically implode. And what is happening to the US markets in the meantime? Trump has made an executive decision, and to be honest with you, I think it is a very good decision, because if you do not do this, you risk a fiscal default and a loss in the dollar, and ultimately what ultimately leads to a debt spiral. So again, you've got to crack a few eggs to make an omelette, and I think this is what they're doing. I think they are putting so much pressure onto China, what forces them to liquidate treasuries, gold, etc., to prop up their entire system, and power and influence is moved from China to allies back to the US, and the US is showcasing fiscal dominance. Now, I've also been receiving comments in relation to the Fed. Why can't the Fed just cut rates, cut rates, cut rates? You cannot cut rates because you will look irresponsible. You need to show fiscal dominance, and the Fed only controls the short end of the yield curve. It does not control the long end. The market dictates the long end. Now, obviously, you are going to see China liquidate its positions in US treasuries, and you're going to see other countries do that as well, because they need liquidity to prop up their entire markets. Now, once that selling is over, what do I think is going to happen? I think we are going to see a rotation from the stock markets back into bonds, and like I'm saying, bonds will start to go up and yields will start to come down, and this is how I am assessing this entire circus. And I understand there is complexity to this entire discussion, because basically, if the US does not do this, power and global influence will be massively shattered. And in my opinion, you need to restore that. Now again, touching on some other comments just in relation to, obviously, political bias. Are you red? Are you blue? What are you talking about? Blah, 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 blah. This is not a red issue, and this is not a blue issue. This is a United States issue. If you want to sustain the top position globally, you need to show leadership. You need to show integrity. You need to show fiscal dominance. And this is what I'm kind of getting at, is that there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things going on with this entire discussion. Now, when I put myself in Trump's shoes, I would be doing exactly the same, because you are basically trying to save America. You are making sure that the US is going to be the dominant player from now on, because you don't want these countries to be flirting with each other, getting into bed with each other, and doing all of this stuff and leaving you out of the picture. You need to show that you have discipline, especially when it comes to monetary and fiscal policy. And I think that is what Trump is currently doing. Now, obviously, we have the whole circus with tariffs and blah, 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 blah. Now, just on tariffs, and obviously this whole discussion with tariffs, the comments have been, well, we're trying to manufacture back in the US, and we're trying to do this, we're trying to build factories, blah, 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 blah. You cannot build factories. Now, this is just my opinion, but you cannot build factories, and you cannot make America great again on 5% interest rates. You need the rates to come down. Now, do I think there's a lot of self-sabotage? Do I think this is going to be packaged differently? Yes. Do I think, obviously, the media is going to spin it, tariffs, 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 scare, 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 yes, 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 yes. But ultimately, this will force China to liquidate their positions. It will make the US, it will realign trust in the US, what will ultimately strengthen the US economy going forward. Now, the counter argument to all of this is we don't want the US to be the global superpower. Now, you can do your own speculation just in relation to the motives behind that. Obviously, what is going on? I don't even want to say it, but you can kind of draw the lines, right? Now, I think a lot of people will look back on this moment and think, did he make the right decision? Yes, ultimately, he could build America and make America great again with cheap money, and I think that's where he wants to get to. Now, I think that is the plan. Now, just touching on tariffs again, I think tariffs are being used as a stick rather than a carrot. You keep dangling carrots, and no one wants to do it. No one thinks, oh yeah, he's not going to do it. They'll just roll over. The US is not as strong as it used to be. They'll do exactly what I say, blah, 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 blah. Now we've got Trump. Hang on a minute, the party is over. This is what's going to happen, and if you don't like it, then so be it. We're going to have a fragmented world, and the cost of capital is going to be significantly hard, and we are going to go into stagflation and basically a Great Depression. Now, if you do not want that to happen, buy US debt, and I think that is basically what is happening. Now, tariffs, I think, are just being packaged just in relation to negotiations when it comes to the treasury markets and obviously yields. Now, I think the signal is the yields, and everything else is noise. And that is where my head's at. Now, hopefully this video has been informative. If you think I've missed anything, or if you want to share any insights, please leave it in the comments below. Now, to the 4 people who keep on supporting me, I hope you're having a lovely day. I know it's difficult, but take care. Bye-bye.